Hello, my juniors. Welcome to another embryological lecture series. It is your great science tutor Lorenzo. I'll be breaking down the formation of the gut tube, which is the formation of all the GIT organs. So if you are new to my channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on your post notification button so that anytime I drop any video, you'll be sure to be notified. And if you want a video to be made for you, make sure to drop it down in the comment section. I promise to make the video for you. So let us jump right into the video. So today we're talking about the formation of the gut tube. So all the GIT organs are formed from the gut tube. They are all formed from the gut tube. So we want to, in simple explanation, knowing how the gut tube is formed. First of all, the gut tube during the third to fourth week, maybe starting from day 15, because gastrulation occurs in day 15. What's gastrulation? Gastrulation is the formation of the three germ layers of the body, which is the trilaminar disc. So at your day 15, what happens? You are forming the trilaminar disc, which is the ectoderm, the mesoderm, and the endoderm. So when all this thing happens, what happens? From the ectoderm, you form the neural tube. So the neural tube closes, and through the process of neurulation, it closes and it develops into the brain and the spinal cord through the process of neurulation, which I've said. Why the endoderm goes forward and forms the gut tube. So the ectoderm forms the neural tube, while the endoderm forms the gut tube. So now you are having two tubes here, a tube on top of a tube. We are leaving the mesoderm. So the mesoderm is just a part connecting and keeping the gut tube and the neural tube intact. But with time, during the further stage of development, what happens? The mesoderm now divides into two layers, which is specifically the lateral plate part of the mesoderm. The lateral plate part of the mesoderm, because we have three parts of the mesoderm. We have the paraxial mesoderm, we have the intermediate mesoderm, and we have the lateral plate mesoderm. So the lateral plate mesoderm is divided into a splanchic or a visceral layer, or a somatic or a parietal layer. So we have the splanchic layer, which is also called the visceral layer, and we have the somatic, which is called the parietal layer. So when it splits into two, what happens? The parietal layer wraps around the ectoderm to form the lateral body wall, wraps around the lateral body wall, and it comes in the midline where it comes in contact with the visceral body wall formed by the by the splanchic layer. All this part forms what we call the cavity. We call it the primitive cavity. So when the lateral body wall formed from the parietal layer wrapping around the ectoderm, and which it gets in contact in the midline, where it gets in contact with the visceral body wall in the midline to form the primitive cavity. This primitive cavity is what forms the pleural cavity, the pericardial cavity, and the abdominal cavity, which is the peritoneal cavity. So don't forget it. So the primitive cavity develops from the coming together of the lateral body wall and the ventral body wall. So when they come together in between the parietal and the visceral layer, you form the primitive cavity. So don't forget it. So we have formed the gut tube. The gut tube that is formed from the endoderm, which is a part of the trilaminar disc. So next now we want to divide the gut tube. So first of all, before you divide the gut tube, you have to form the primitive gut. Can you form the primitive gut from the gut tube? Now, first of all, you have to remember that the endodermal lining, a portion of the endodermal lining of the yolk sac cavity is incorporated into the embryo. So the endodermal lining of the yolk sac cavity, a portion of it is incorporated into the embryo to form the primitive gut. So if they ask you where is the primitive gut, you say that the endodermal lining, a portion of the endodermal lining of the yolk sac cavity is incorporated into the embryo to form the primitive gut. So now the other portion of the endodermal lining now is now separated, and they stay outside. So that the parts that stay outside is the yolk sac and the allantois. So the allantois and the yolk sac stay outside the embryo, whilst a portion of it is incorporated into the embryo to form the primitive gut. So now this occurs during craniocordal folding, or we'll call it the lateral folding. So when the embryo is folding craniocordally, head to tail, and also the lateral folding. So what happens? This is when we form the primitive gut. So the cranial part of the gut tube becomes the foregut, while the caudal part becomes the what? The hindgut. But there's a part of the middle which is the midgut. So the midgut is a part of the yolk sac. It is a part that is connected to the yolk sac. It's a part of the embryo that is connected to the yolk sac. A part of the embryo connected to the yolk sac. So it is connected by what we call by the vitaline duct or the yolk sac stalk. The vitaline duct or the yolk sac. So that is how the midgut is connected to the what? To the yolk sac. The midgut is connected to the yolk sac by the vitaline duct or the yolk sac stalk. So simple. So how do you define? So we have said that the gut tube has a foregut, which is the cranial end, the hindgut, which is the downward part, which is the caudal end, and a connection, which is the midgut, by a vitaline duct or the yolk sac stalk. To finish. Now how can you divide these people? How can you divide the foregut, the midgut, and the hindgut? So first of all, we start that the gut tube begins specifically into 4 sections. You have the pharyngeal tube, you have the foregut, you have the midgut, you have the hindgut. So now the pharyngeal tube, or which you call the primitive pharynx, begins from the oropharyngeal membrane. Don't forget, from the oropharyngeal membrane, and where does it end? It ends at the what? The respiratory diverticulum. Again, the oropharyngeal membrane, which is the pharyngeal tube or the primitive pharynx, begins from the oropharyngeal membrane, which is the mouth, which becomes the mouth, and it ends in the respiratory diverticulum. So the respiratory diverticulum forms the lung bud, which develop into the lung, the trachea, and co. So also this part forms part of the foregut. So this part of the pharyngeal tube forms part of the foregut, because the respiratory diverticulum forms in the ventral wall. The respiratory diverticulum is formed in the ventral wall of the foregut. Don't forget it. So now this part also forms, which is part of the oropharyngeal membrane, develops into the embryology of the head and the neck. Don't forget it. So since we have stated this part, we go to the foregut. The foregut begins from a part of the pharyngeal tube, which is stated firstly, to the liver bud. The liver bud or the liver outgrowth that becomes the liver later. So that is the foregut. So the foregut is a part of the pharyngeal tube. So the pharyngeal tube, which is the primitive pharynx, ended in the respiratory diverticulum that forms the lung bud and the respiratory structure. While the foregut begins from that pharyngeal tube, a part of the pharyngeal tube, down to the liver bud, which is an outgrowth that forms the liver. Now the midgut begins from that liver bud that forms the liver down to the right 2/3 and the left 1/3 of the transverse colon. The right 2/3 and the left 1/3 of the transverse colon. That is the midgut for you. So the midgut starts from the liver outgrowth or the liver bud down to the right 2/3 and left 1/3 part of the transverse colon, while the hindgut begins from the left 1/3 of the transverse colon down to the cloacal membrane. So this is the part of the gut tube, which you have stated, the division of the gut tube. Now one thing you have to know about this gut tube is that they are lined by the endoderm. They are lined specifically by the endoderm that brings up what we call endodermal epithelial lining. Also that same endodermal cell also give rise to parenchyma cells. The parenchyma forms the hepatocytes. The parenchyma forms the hepatocytes. So don't forget, the endodermal cell gives rise to the epithelial lining in the endoderm, and also it also brings out what we call parenchyma cells that form the hepatocyte and the exo and the endocrine cells of the pancreas. Don't forget. So the stroma part of the cell is formed from the visceral mesoderm, which forms the muscles, the connective tissues, and other parts of the gut tube. Don't forget. So the stroma cells are formed from the visceral mesoderm, while the linings are formed from the endoderm. While the endoderm give rise to the parenchyma, which give rise to special cells in the GIT. So don't forget it. Don't forget it. Next we'll be talking about is the mesentery. So mesentery is just a double layer of peritoneum that covers organ and attaches them to either the ventral or the dorsal abdominal wall. Very simple. So mesentery is just like a cover, a protection of all these organs that attaches them to either the ventral wall or the dorsal wall of the abdomen. So one thing you need to understand that most of the derivative of the gut tube, which are the GIT organs, are usually covered and protected. And now organs that are located inside are called intraperitoneal, while the ones that are located outside are called retroperitoneal. Usually example, the kidneys. So since we understand that there are interperitoneal organ inside the mesentery and retroperitoneal organ outside the mesentery where their anterior surface are covered. So now we also have what we call peritoneal ligament. So we have mesentery and we have peritoneal ligament. The peritoneal ligament is just like a peritoneal fold, a long peritoneal fold, just like it is called a false ligament. A false ligament that what they just do is they just connect two or more organs together. So they connect two or more organs together and allow for the passage and the exchange of what neurovascular structures like the nerve, the vessels, and the lymphatics. So the nerve, vessels, lymphatic pass through these organs, connecting one organ to one organ, one peritoneal organ to one peritoneal organ. So since you understand this thing, now one thing you have to know that formally the mesenchyme of the foregut, midgut, hindgut are connected to the posterior abdominal wall. At first, they are all covered by the posterior abdominal wall. All derivative of the gut soup are all covered at first. But one thing you need to know, at the 5th week, the bridge of the mesentery, connecting all these organs becomes narrow. It becomes narrow and slim, and it doesn't hold all the organ proper. So the only part is holding is some part of the foregut, the midgut, and a greater part of the hindgut, called the dorsal mesentery proper. So at first, they are all of them are covered very well. All of them are covered very well. But now, in the 5th week, it's just that the mesentery becomes more narrower, and only some part of the foregut, the midgut, and the greater part of the hindgut is covered, which is the lower part of the esophagus down to the cloacal region. So of all these parts, you should all know that the part that is covered is the stomach is covered very well, which you call by the dorsal mesogastrum. The duodenum is covered by the mesoduodenum. The colon is also covered, which you call the mesocolon, and also the greater part of the mesentery proper, which is covering the jejunum and some part of the iliac loop, are covered very well. So don't forget, the stomach is covered by the mesogastrum down to the spleen. Also, the duodenum is covered by the mesoduodenum. The colon is covered by the mesocolon, while the mesentery proper, which is the jejunum and the iliac loop, are also covered. So don't forget it. So all these parts they are all covered by what? By the mesentery. So we have discussed what the dorsal mesentery is and where it covers. So the dorsal mesentery literally covers starting from the stomach. It covers the stomach to the dorsal mesogastrum, cover the mesoduodenum, which is covering the duodenum, cover the colon, and also it covers the duodenal loop. Also very, very easy. So now the ventral mesogastrum is also different. What does the ventral mesogastrum do? The ventral mesentery, which is also the ventral mesogastrum, it covers it covers the lower part of the esophagus. It also covers the stomach, which is at the lesser curvature, and it also covers the duodenum too. So also it is derived from what we call the septum transversum, which forms the diaphragm. So now what happens? The liver bud, which forms some part of the liver, goes into the septum transversum, and when it goes into the septum transversum, it divides the ventral mesentery into the lesser omentum and the falciform ligament. Don't forget the lesser omentum and the falciform ligament, while the dorsal mesogastrum forms the greater omentum. Don't forget the dorsal mesogastrum forms the greater omentum, which is formed from the dorsal mesentery, while the ventral mesogastrum forms the lesser omentum and also the falciform ligament. Now the lesser omentum connects the liver to the stomach, to the lesser curvature, while the falciform ligament connects the liver to the anterior abdominal wall. Don't forget. So we have the ventral mesentery and we have the dorsal mesentery. The ventral mesentery divides into the lesser omentum and the falciform ligament, while the dorsal mesentery connects, it forms the greater omentum, which also covers the greater curvature of the stomach. Also, the dorsal mesentery also forms a mesoduodenum and also the mesentery proper that covers the jejunum and some part of the ilium. So very, very simple. So now I hope it all made sense and you have understand the formation of the gut tube, you have understand the division of the gut tube, you have understand the mesentery around the gut tube, which is the peritoneal covering. Now hope it all made sense to you. So now if you are just joining on, make sure to subscribe, don't forget, and turn on your post notification button, so anytime I drop any video, be sure to be notified. So we'll be moving around the different parts, which is the foregut, midgut, hindgut. So the next we'll be going around is the foregut. So stay with us in the next video. We're talking about the oesophagus, which is the first part of the foregut. Stay, don't forget.